The ailment was transferred or transmitted by the airborne particle whose sweet scent was similar to the Klingon plant's night-blooming Drogdor. You know what? No. No. What's up, Trek Nation, and welcome back to After the Snap. I am your host, Tasha Pierce, and today I'm going to try to figure out exactly which one of the doctors from Trek can get us out of this pandemic mess. If you'd like to know which doctor I think would be able to safely and effectively end this pandemic, just keep watching. As I'm going about trying to determine exactly which doctor is going to get us out of the COVID-19 rut, the first thing that is a prerequisite is to have a body of work. I need to be able to tell from his actions or inactions whether or not this doctor is the person who should be in charge of getting us a vaccine. So that means 2 doctors are being eliminated right off the bat. That is Dr. Tiana from Lower Decks, because really, no. Just no. And Dr. Culber from Star Trek Discovery. Now, Dr. Culber may be capable, but he's not even the chief medical officer on Discovery, and we just haven't seen a body of work. We see him doing an awful lot of diagnosing of stamets, but really not much of anything else. With those 2 out of the way, let's get into the heavy hitters. The first doctor is Dr. Pulaski. Now remember, Dr. Pulaski was the chief medical officer on the Enterprise D for 1 season. She had a rather contentious relationship with the crew and the characters and the fans of the Enterprise D, but this is not a personality contest. She's not running for Miss Congeniality. Will Dr. Pulaski be the doctor that we need to solve this pandemic? Now, the episode that I'm submitting as her resume is Unnatural Selection. In this episode, we learn that Pulaski seems to be averse to any new means of technology. Sounds a little familiar to me, but she especially didn't like the transporter until she had to use it to save her own life from a genetically modified infection. She became infected by taking a chance and beaming a carrier of this disease onto a shuttle with her and Data. Had she just listened to Picard, she may not have placed herself in this position, leaping into the unknown while she didn't have all the information available on this. In this episode, she was absolutely the doctor who was had the knowledge and the ability to create a vaccine, but she wound up getting herself sick. And because of that, I'm eliminating Dr. Pulaski because she couldn't even keep herself safe from the outbreak in this episode. Our next entry is Dr. Phlox. He's the Enterprise NX-01 medical officer, and he has a very easy demeanor and a wonderful bedside manner. He has an interest in natural remedies, and his sickbay contains an interplanetary zoo of animals, some of them for food for other animals, which are used as a source of medical treatments. So why is he showing up so low on the list of trusted doctors from Trek? 1 episode, Dear Doctor. In this episode, the interspecies, so they were asking the Enterprise for help to become warp capable so that they can go from system to system and attempt to find a cure. Archer found that that species was not ready for warp capability, so he could not assist them in becoming a warp capable society, but he asked Dr. Phlox to come up with a cure for this virus. But Phlox found out that the mink were unaffected by this virus, and he felt that if he gave the Valakians the vaccine that he had already curated, by the way, that it would hold the mink back as a species. So he kind of made the choice to allow the Valakians to die out so that the mink would take their rightful spot as the dominant species on that planet. He kind of did the whole survival of the fittest application of medicine. Dr. Phlox doesn't end up higher on my list because of this. Suppose that there's some amoeba or some microorganism that we don't even know about here on Earth. If Dr. Phlox reasoned that species development was more important than our survival as human beings, he might choose them over us. So with that, Dr. Phlox is getting das Boot. Our next entry is the EMH of Voyager, the emergency medical hologram that was designed to just pop in and out in emergency situations, but ran continuously for 7 years, the entire run of the Voyager show. We saw the Doctor far exceed his original programming, and he had to expand his programming extensively to keep up with being online 100% of the time. He eventually overcame design flaws such as a terrible bedside manner or a no-nonsense approach to practicing medicine. But the one flaw that he really struggled to overcome was narcissism. Now, while we can't hold him responsible for the way that he was programmed, this flaw did lead to him endangering the crew of Voyager. The episode that is part of his resume is Macrocosm. See, the Doctor narcissistically thought that he was the only member of the Voyager crew who could assist a group of miners who had fallen ill on the surface of a planet. The Doctor pleaded with Chakotay, telling him that since he's a hologram and he's got his holo emitter, that he won't get sick and there's minimal risk of infection to the crew. Boy, was he wrong. Now, had he not gone down to the planet and brought back microbes that turned into macrobes, we probably never would have gotten to see Captain Janeway go all commando. But it was the Doctor's insistence that he could not become infected that led to the outbreak on the ship. And in his defense, he did cure the virus, but it would have never been a problem for Voyager had he not insisted upon going on the surface of this planet. And this is why the EMH didn't wind up higher on this list. The next Doctor is McCoy. We know him as the Doctor on the original series Enterprise, and he was the chief medical officer, friend of Kirk, frenemy of Spock, against whom he often shows his bigotry against alien species and cultures. But again, not a personality contest. McCoy prefers less intrusive in treatment, and he believes in a body's innate recuperative properties. Now, he also has experience in developing vaccines, often under pressure. The episode today that I'll point to is Miri. This is the one when the Enterprise discovers an Earth-like planet that was devastated by a horrific disease and is now populated entirely by old-ass children. Turns out that once you reach puberty, you begin to become affected by the disease. Unfortunately, the whole landing party of the Enterprise is over 18. Spock seems to be immune from the virus because of his green copper-based blood, but he would still be a carrier of the disease. So none of the party can go back to the Enterprise. McCoy has equipment beamed down to the surface and gets to work on studying the disease. He studied the structure of the bug because in order to create a vaccine, he needed to know enough about the bug to be able to mimic it. Unfortunately, it was rapidly deteriorating, so McCoy had to work fast. Now, he'll lose a few points to me because he had the assistance of Spock, who is a capable scientist in his own right. But still, the thing that makes me put McCoy in this position on this list is the fact that once he came up with what he thought may have been a cure, he tested it on himself. That may seem like a selfless act, but it also gives the team only one shot at a cure. Luckily, he got it right the first time, but he put everyone in danger by not testing it on someone else. Maybe Rand, she was there, tested on her. And now I'm heading into the top 2 doctors. There are 2 people who I haven't mentioned yet, and the first of those is Beverly Crusher. She was Enterprise D's original and final chief medical officer, and she's capable, empathetic, and highly skilled. She left the Enterprise for one season when the character went to head up Starfleet Medical. Now, the episode that's going to serve as her resume is Angel 1. In this episode, the crew of the Enterprise was overtaken by an outbreak of the Quasalu 7 virus. The ailment was transmitted by an airborne particle whose sweet scent inspired people to deeply inhale. Now, once inside the host's body, the particle became the virus. The cause of the virus was a mystery, but Dr. Crusher was able to successfully isolate the particle and develop an inoculant. Under immense pressure, she came through for the Enterprise when they needed her the most. I would definitely trust her to guide the world's population through this pandemic, but there is one doctor I believe could do an even better job, and that doctor is Julian Bashir, the chief medical officer for Deep Space Nine. Now, he had experience treating various species on the space station. He showed a remarkable aptitude for experimental treatments and procedures. He's definitely more than qualified to be CMO in any and every situation that Starfleet could throw at him. But the episode that exemplifies his ability to discover a cure for COVID-19 is The Quickening. In this episode, Dr. Bashir attempts to find a cure for a centuries-old lethal disease that has destroyed and afflicted society. Now, he learned that his equipment was speeding up the mutation of the disease, and he still worked relentlessly until he developed a treatment that he administered to a woman who was pregnant. Sadly, the inoculation didn't save her life, and she died during childbirth. It was then that Dr. Bashir noticed that the newborn was free of the disease. Turns out he had created a vaccine rather than a cure. This is ensuring that future generations of this species would survive. This would be reason to celebrate and file the vaccine away as a success, but not for Dr. Bashir. When Dr. Bashir got back to Deep Space Nine, he continued to work on a cure. Now, while I'm sure all the doctors in Starfleet would have been able to develop a vaccine, I believe Bashir is the only one who will continue to work on the problem after leaving the planet in his rear view. Because this element of his character was shown, I think I trust him the most with the health of this entire world. So what do you think? Who would be the best doctor to solve the COVID-19 problem? Let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe to After the Snap for more sci-fi content. And as always, I want you to live long and prosper. Peace.